When I was 7 years old, I stopped believing in fairy tales. I realized that the stories that we are told don't always end happily ever after. The world is not like that. Rita is a Shudder original from Guatemala, written and directed by Jairo Bustamante. I hope I pronounced that name correctly. Check out his IMDb page for the full list of his work. And this centers around a young girl named Rita in a film called Rita. No, not about Rita Moreno or not. After 10,000 years, I'm free. I want to add a little bit of humor before I dive into the dark subject matter that this particular movie invokes, because oh boy. So Rita is played by Juliana Santa Cruz in a terrific performance, I do want to say, and there are other actresses with names that are very, very difficult for me to pronounce, though I do want to shout the character of Solme, played by Angela Quavado. And basically this does center around Rita, and this takes place at a safe house after Rita basically escapes an abusive household. And then it turns out there's a lot more dark shit taking place inside the walls of this particular safe house in a Guatemalan forest. And this is based on something from 2017 where the lives of 41 young girls were claimed in horrific fashion. Absolutely horrific fashion. This is told with a dark fantasy spin where Rita sees angels and demons. I'm not talking about the Da Vinci Code movie, and she sees a lot of fanciful stuff. And this is kind of a way basically to not necessarily numb the horrors that are taking place, but to tell it in a different way through the eyes of somebody that is innocent, but having their innocence taken away through such horrific acts. I, again, do want to shout Juliana's performance. She is magnificent in this. And while I do think that this movie has a few pacing issues, and some of this stuff probably would play better with Guatemalan and, the environs as far as audiences go, I do think that a lot of this translates well to American audiences. This is more psychological horror with some deeply disturbing shit that takes place, and the fact that anybody would do this to children, anybody in general, but especially to children, is just horrifying. You can read up on the 2017 stuff that this is based on. I'm not going to litigate that here. Read a little bit. Good God, the fact that this shit goes on. But it is a well-told story. I do think that a couple things could have been done. I think 10 or so minutes could have been trimmed off of this. I do think it gets a little bit long in the tooth with telling its story. But when the violence does hit, it really does hit pretty goddamn hard, including one part a little bit later on. But just, it's what is implied and what you don't necessarily see that gets even more horrifying. And there are just some really, really creepy performances, including by one particular guard. So I do have to say, as far as the dark themes and invoking that and not wrapping up the story necessarily nicely, because it's not a happy story. It does not have a happy ending. Bit of a spoiler right there. But it is pretty haunting. It is something that will stick with you. Again, even with the issues, some of the issues that I do have. I did put up a Letterboxd review if you want to check that out as well, along with others. But yeah, I look forward to seeing the writer-director's, future work. May check out some of his other stuff that's available on streaming services. So yeah, despite a few pacing issues and needing to trim a little bit of fat, I will say that the story is well told with, again, a great performance by Juliana. I am going to get into spoilers, but check it out if it is your cup of tea. It's not easy to get through, though. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, we see that Rita is being taken to the safe house. She isn't exactly accepted right away, but when you get fresh meat, the guards, including one particular guard, gets a little bit excited. If you are like that around children in any way, shape, or form, by the way, you are scum. You will be found out and you will be removed from this goddamn earth. So, she sees, angels, demons, a lot of crazy shit going on. There's like the stuff about her particular group wearing wings. And then there are fairies. There's even like a part where they show pregnant girls. Gross. Those are underage girls being abused. Basically, this safe house involves class. It's really just them making clothes in a sweatshop environment. there's a lot of good stuff here that really could, I think, have been explored a little bit more. Um, there's there are a few neat little like bits where the girls have their uprising and everything, and their uprising moments and their bonding, and even though Rita has to be accepted in, she wants to escape because her dad was clearly abusing her younger sister that was right around the same age that Rita was when she started getting abused. Hence the opening line, when I was 7 years old, I stopped believing in fairy tales. It's like a Grizzly Smith situation. If you get it, you get it. One of the people that seems to be taking records and trying to help girls with their cases, the actress kind of looked like Sephiroth. I don't know why I noticed that. And she wants to basically get her story out there. She had a boss that helped, that basically employed her and was trying to help her, like actually legitimately help her. She actually, this wasn't ribbed. This wasn't her trying to have an ulterior motive. She saw potential with this girl, wanted to save her. So that was nice. And that actress did a pretty good job as well. But there are some ones that are like in black veils with stars or with lights around them called the stars. And they're seen as, they're dying off one by one. Some of them are, alive. Some of them are very much dead. Again, some haunting shit here. There are points where, like, there's one bald guard. I think his name is William. He is just ultra creepy. The actor does a great job, by the way. But he really, really is interested in Rita. And just no. Why? So, at one point, Rita ends up in the forest. This is after getting, a little more ingratiated with her particular group. And there's all this creepy stuff going on, and more of the implied stuff, and then some of the abuse, and just the fact these girls, at some points, are having to piss in pots, because if they want to speak up, then they are basically housed in their particular room and having to piss in there. Maybe being given water, maybe being given food, but they're not given the best rations. They're treated like shit, when they really should be treated, as women getting back on their goddamn, young women getting back on their feet, being ingratiated with family members that actually won't fucking abuse them. So, at one point, earlier in the movie, Rita gets a knife, like an encrusted knife thing. It's like an enchanted knife that she will use to strike down the enemies. And then at one point, these stars or these angels basically say, and motherfuckers must die, motherfuckers must die. That's a pretty good, theme and message to just go with. This is dark at times. There's basically one final thing with that one guy, William, where he gets her in a bathroom stall and she tries to stab him. Doesn't quite work, but then one of the girls hits him with a brick. Yeah. The pregnancy theme, and her also telling the Sephiroth-looking woman earlier that she got an abortion because her dad impregnated her. At least that's what the implication was. Gross. You don't deserve to have children or a goddamn, to be living on this planet if you're going to do that. And I don't care if they're your blood relatives or if they're children that you adopted. You don't do that shit. They do manage to get out and escape, but then the police capture them and bring them back, and then they're housed in this room where they decide to start a fire, essentially, or a fire gets started, one or another, because they didn't start the fire. It's always been burning since the world's been turning. And even though before that it seemed like Rita was going to get away on a bus, there are actually good people in Guatemala, which sounded a lot less dickish in my head. There are people that want to help, but there's corruption all through the goddamn government, the police and all that, apparently. And Rita gets captured. Then the police basically hustle them into a goddamn room. They start the fire. And then, yeah, the orders from the top, they won't let the firemen in, they won't let any of this happen. So, yeah, most of these girls die. Rita does. Rita's sister gets saved. The dad does eventually get convicted. And this isn't actually how the entire story went, but this is how she's telling it. So there are fanciful elements. There are points, I'm sure, that play with the narrative. And again, it does have parts where I think we could have not gone with the slow-mo and saved a few minutes. It wasn't necessarily for dramatic effect. I don't think that necessarily worked. But Juliana's performance was terrific. The actress who played Solmi, she was good too as well. And there are some other good performances here. Good themes, good dark elements. B+. It gets a B+, despite my issues with it. It mostly works. So I look forward to seeing what the director does in the future. But yeah, if you have seen this, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Recklin. I'll see you soon.